Hi, guys. I'm excited to hang out today. We're going to be talking about in a bittersweet way, one of my favorite subjects, which is wrongful convictions. So, when I say bittersweet, I mean it's great to hear that we ultimately come to a point of justice for someone that was wrongly accused, wrongly convicted, and we've reached the light at the end of the tunnel. But of course, the entire journey, all the steps it takes to get there, and for many of those that are wrongfully convicted, that day never comes at all. So it's always a bittersweet conversation, but I like to talk about it. I appreciate when we have in depth coverage. Today, we're going to be looking at coverage from the Frontier, which is a nonprofit organization in Oklahoma. And when they do the work to cover stories like this, it puts the face to the story. It makes it palpable, it makes it tangible, and really helps us see the impact. It's not just a headline of, oh, somebody got it wrong somewhere and somebody was in jail because of it. Somebody was in prison because of it. We actually get to see the stories. So we're going to start with the most recent development, which is, a civil settlement where Tulsa is going to pay the individual that was wrongfully incarcerated. And then we're going to wind it all the way back. We're going to hear about what went wrong at the trial level, what went wrong with the investigation. Because I think it's always important for us to remember, why would somebody be arrested if they didn't do the thing? Why would somebody be convicted if they weren't actually guilty? Why would somebody identify somebody through a photo lineup or a composite image if it wasn't really that person? And these stories help us realize those things happen and we get it wrong and it has real implications. So happy that everyone's going to be joining in to discuss topics like this. I see we got special Bendy Bros here. We got Adventure Aaron. We got G's Luis. Got to see you a little bit this morning, so good to see you again. And the Big J Money. So good to see you guys. Hit the like button and say hey as you're joining in. I also want to give a bit of a roll call shout out. The last time we got together, we raised some money. Well, not raised money, but we donated a bunch of gifts to Miss Wiggins' class. Mrs. Wiggins is doing a wish list for the kids. I'll drop it again in the chat right now for you guys if you do want to still participate. But after we did that stream and we bought a whole bunch of stuff. You guys bought some board games on your own to send to Miss Wiggins' kids. I was getting comments from replay crew and people over on Twitter. So I want to send an extra shout out to anyone that came in after and still bought board games. So Mara was on replay crew. She bought 2 board games for the kids. Kitty Cat sent a gift. She said she's sending it today. Steph JK sent over a board game. Angelica LA also sent one. Jake Kellerman said she sent 2 board games 2 times. And I also want to give another shout out to Factual Lie, aka O'Bailey's. She had sent some money over on PayPal. She's over in the UK and can't use Amazon wishlist the same way that we can. So she said, oh, I sent a PayPal. Can you send a gift? So I sent a board game while we were live, but then I looked and it was more. So I sent more gifts, but it was on behalf of Factual Lie. So big thank you to everyone that took part in that. And no shame if you didn't, not everybody can donate and that's okay. And then Mrs. Wiggins had posted a thank you. This was on the 14th. So I think she only went by what names she could see. She said, Kat, set Darcy free. Margaret A. Regis, thank you for donating board games to my classroom. I couldn't take pictures because they were delivered to the school directly, and I'm trying to keep it a surprise. I'm so excited for them. So as of the 14th, Mrs. Wiggins had already, and you guys, I think it might have been Mara was one of the people that mentioned it, but somebody had said, hey, the board games were already delivered. It was like less than 24 hours from us ordering some of them. And I checked and I'm like, wow, holy crap, they were already there. So Miss Wiggins had already received some the morning after our last stream. So there's an update on that, you guys. For today's pin fundraiser, because we're going to just pin a good cause every stream. This weekend, Runkle did his 24-hour live stream. It was awesome. I was there all day, and I feel tired from it. I was just in the chat. But Runkle dedicated his time raising money for the Stollery Children's Hospital. And Melinda from Stollery, she got to get on and explain what Stollery has been able to do with the funds that Ian and his community have helped raise over the years, as well as other creators that have, contributed to the Stollery Children's Hospital as well. And, they built a whole outside area for kids that are recovering and need like that positive uplifting of spirits. They have like an outdoor play and walking area now that they can go outside. They brought in a helper dog named Pumbaa, who, if the kids need to start doing their recovery, they got to get up and walk for 10 minutes. But the kid is, just really like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to. Well, they have Pumbaa come in, Pumbaa the dog, and Pumbaa gets the kids motivated, or Pumbaa sits with the kids while they're about to get an IV, something that doesn't require a completely sterile environment like surgery. You wouldn't bring the dog in for that. But just distracting a kid when they're about to get a needle prick, kid's busy, distracted, petting Pumbaa because Pumbaa's awesome. And then the kid doesn't even have to pay attention to the needle prick. So, really, really cool initiative. That's going to be what we pin today. So, we're going to call this Ian's fundraiser for putting Stollery might be too long. So, I'm just going to put Children's Hospital. And let me pin that. And then we're going to get into today's story. So, thank you guys always for bearing with me through my housekeeping. Get that pinned. Yeah, and Trikisha's in the building saying mine were delivered the next day. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I know things move quickly, but that was very quick. That was very quick. Hey, Kimberly, good to see you. Hey, Danny, good to see you as well. All right, you guys. So we have the story of William Henry Jamerson. So Tulsa's going to pay him 26.25 million. He was wrongfully convicted of rape after a decades-long fight. So we're going to hear about what went into that fight. The settlement comes after William Henry Jamerson spent more than 2 decades in prison for a rape conviction that was overturned last year. And right off the jump, when I saw this amount, we're starting to see more stories where the wrongfully convicted are getting access either through litigation or because a state or municipality has a policy to compensate the wrongfully convicted. It's not so often you see an amount this large. And when I say that, there's been cases where I've seen individuals compensated for decades worth of wrongful convictions, and their settlement amount is like a million or less, if anything at all. So, in part, where I'm like, there's no price you could put on losing 24 years of your life, 24 years of your freedom, 24 years of having to bear the weight of something that you didn't do on your shoulders. There's so many other individuals in the situation that even what I don't think is the price tag you can put on something like this, they don't even come close to it. So, got to keep that in mind as context. And then this is Mr. Jamerson, and this is his attorney here, Dan Smolin. So there they go. That was from last year. Let's get what happened with the settlement. So the Tulsa City Council on Wednesday, so this was last week, approved paying $26.25 million to William Henry Jamerson, a man who spent more than 2 decades in prison for a rape he did not commit. The deal comes more than a year after judge overturned Jamerson's 1991 conviction. That's like almost my whole life. That's crazy. So, like, the life that I've lived is almost like a complete overlap of what Jamerson has gone through. Well, not quite, because he probably had to deal with pretrial and the arrest, like, before the conviction. Like, that's just crazy to conceptualize. After the council vote, Jamerson said he was relieved. The 35 years. Oh, it's 35. Why'd they say over 2? So he was incarcerated for over 2 decades. But he's been fighting for 35 years to clear his name. And that during that time he became conditioned to expect bad news, but his faith taught him to never lose hope. We've got a quote from him. He says, "I've been getting up early because it's been on my mind. God took me this far, so it's a blessing to be over with it now. All the stress is gone. I'm glad it's over with. That's what's important. I can move on with my life." I've started a fitness, I've started to get back into fitness because I've gained weight, mostly from eating poorly over the last year, just being short on time and eating quick, convenient foods, or eating because it's like an excuse to take a break from work. Yesterday, I'm working out. I'm going to work out every day. I'm not going to miss it. When I'm reading something like this, I have no excuse now. So if Jamerson can wake up every day early and deal with what he had to go through, I've got to get my workout in today. So I'm going to take his story and I'm going to use it as motivation just to do better. Dan Smolin, that's his attorney, praised Tulsa Mayor Monroe Nichols and the council for working to settle the case. While the settlement offers Jamerson a measure of restitution, it cannot replace the years lost or the experiences he missed. We've got a quote, I think, from the attorney saying, really, what they've done is save themselves a 70 million jury verdict. Yeah, yeah. And I don't think juries aren't strangers anymore to giving out huge monetary awards. And I think as we go through, I would like to think, I would like to safely assume, confidently assume that a jury would decide favorably in Jamerson's favor. So the attorney continues, in this case also you had the unique component where you had a widespread conspiracy among city personnel, law enforcement. They're the ones who cost themselves all this money. Henry Jamerson told them he was innocent from day one. Jamerson was 22 when he was arrested in May of 1991 in connection with the rape of 16-year-old Kayleen Dubbs behind a Midtown Tulsa diner. Police relied on a blood type test as semen collected during a sexual assault exam, a kind of testing that police used before more reliable results from DNA were widely available. Dubbs also identified Jamerson in a photo lineup. And why I really wanted to talk about this story is we're going to hear from Dubbs. And a lot of times when we hear about appeals and fights from even like a decade ago, but 2, 3 decades ago, it's not practical to find like first-hand information about what took place during the investigation or the trial outside of what's included in like an appellate brief. But here we're going to hear, and it's again a big thank you to the Frontier for doing this journalism. But we're going to hear from Dubs about, you know, how little they spoke to her, what few questions they asked of her, and how she was directed as a 16-year-old girl, an actual victim. This is not a situation where the crime was made up. The wrongful conviction stems from false identification and really a lack of concern to look at any other evidence. And we're going to hear from the victim and how she's felt ever since this conviction took place and what that process was like contemporaneously. So to me, it's going to be a really intimate look at how stuff can go very wrongly. So Jamerson's trial lasted just 2 days. His attorney did not give an opening statement, which is weird, or call any witnesses, which might not be too weird, maybe an alibi witness, but that's not the unusual part. But imagine an attorney just not giving an opening statement. Like, imagine, when we watch trials, it'll be like 100, 200, several hundred of us getting together, and we're like, all right, state just did their opening. Let's see what defense cooks up. And sometimes, like we know in YSL, Bruce Harvey deferred. He was going to deliver his opening statement after the state rested their case in chief. We never got to that point with Bruce Harvey's client, so that never happened. But he didn't just not give an opening statement. And maybe the circumstances were dependent on knowing that you have 5 teams of co-counsel that are going to deliver openings, defense openings. But can you imagine if we're just watching a trial where the only opportunity for the defense team to lay out a roadmap, and we're like, yeah, let's see what they do with this opening statement. The defense just goes, we're good, Your Honor. The chat would go bananas in the worst way. It would not be a favorable bananas for that defense attorney. So this guy didn't seem like he had much advocacy back then. And I'm laughing, but it's really not funny. I'm laughing because it's ridiculous. So after about 3 hours of deliberation, the jury convicted Jamerson on 3 felony counts, and he was sentenced to 34 years in prison. From the start, Jamerson maintained his innocence. Over the following decades, he repeatedly requested DNA testing of the rape kit. Tulsa police and prosecutors consistently told him the evidence had been destroyed. Pin that. Those claims are false. So, like, one of the very few avenues you have when you've exhausted your like regular course of post-conviction relief, your regular course of appeals following a conviction, is new evidence, DNA testing. And If no court has heard that that either whatever new evidence comes to light, and or there's new technology that could test DNA evidence that exists from the time of the investigation that has not yet been tested, those are like your two avenues. So like that's what he had, and they're like, nope, sorry, you can't do that because we destroyed the DNA evidence that was never tested. And then on top of that, not only did they claim to have destroyed it, but it was a false claim. So it would have been wrong if they destroyed it. But they were saying they destroyed it when they know that they didn't. So destroying any until his attorneys, his present day attorneys advocated for him and found a way. This all but stamped out his chance at having another opportunity to appeal his conviction. In 2022, Smolin, so this is the attorney, discovered the rape kit slides in a police property facility. Smolin told the Frontier in 2023 that prosecutors had checked out the rape kit from evidence files week before, but did not reveal its existence or notify the court. DNA testing showed that the semen did not belong to Jamerson. 30 some years. 30 some years. The victim told the Frontier in 2023, and we're going to take a look at this, that she no longer believed Jamerson was her attacker and felt guilt that her statements had helped send him to prison. She said she felt that police had directed her to identify Jamerson during the investigation. The conviction continued to have lasting consequences for Jamerson. Even after his release in 2015, he remained listed on Oklahoma's sex offender registry, a mark that disrupted his employment prospects in daily life. Now, so this is where I'll defer to any insights or commentary Aaron shares in the chat, but Aaron has spoken about this before. You know, just because you have your sentence vacated, just because you have your conviction overturned and the prosecution says we're not gonna retry, there's still there's still other issues. There's still other issues. You have your personal reputation was impacted. You have to get back out there and adjust to life after being inside prison for decades. Um, a friend I have, great person, Kat Russell, she studies a lot of like criminal justice, post conviction, and reintegration is her area. She wrote a book compiling stories of those that were released from prison after decades behind bars. And I always remember this one detail. This guy's in prison for decades. He gets out, and the question was something to the effect of, what was like the hardest adjustment or most surprising thing when you got out? And he said, well, I went to get gas. I went to a gas station, and the gas pumps were talking to me. Because you guys, if you've been to a gas station in like recent years, they have like the built-in TVs that advertise to you and they scream at you, hey, you can save 10% today if you enroll for our credit card, or if you come inside, you can get a free coffee with a slice of pizza. And it starts blaring at you the second you put your card in the pump. Well, he never experienced something like that because before he went to prison, that type of technology and infrastructure just didn't exist. So, like, imagine imagine what people go through reintegrating with modern times and everything that they've missed out from being in prison. Like, I wouldn't even have thought twice about, oh, suddenly we have things talking to us at gas pumps, but that's a really significant difference for someone to walk out and have to experience and learn, like, hey, this is how much technology has evolved. So we cannot escape advertising anymore. We just take it for granted. Um, Let's see. Aaron says, mind you, that action by the prosecutors is literally a bar violation. Rule 38G and 38H. So I think we're going to see a little bit more on that. And again, in this case, you guys, it seems like the mayor, obviously we saw the attorney point out this was a win for the city as well because they got to settle for less than they were facing with the possible jury verdict and a jury award for damages. But at least they didn't just wholly try to fight it. Right? And then I think prosecutors did eventually come to light, and we're going to see more of that. Like they fought at first, then they turned it around. We'll have to see why. Also, I see YP in the chat and KP. You guys, your names rhyme a little bit, so good to see you guys. Um, yeah, and Tamika on paper, love the name, says some are unfortunately unable to adjust, and that is a harsh reality. Recidivism is a really important consideration in the criminal justice, the whole cycle, life cycle of a criminal justice, one person going through recidivism and reducing recidivism. Making sure people can adjust when they get out is a huge component to reducing recidivism. So, unfortunately, Jeremy says at least he didn't have an electric car. Like, yeah, like how come is it on? Like, imagine driving, like imagine someone gets out of prison in an area where like all the cars are electric and they turn the car on, but they don't realize it's even on because they're expecting the engine to rev. Although I think there was a car company that for the consumer experience, they were replicating the feeling of a motor vehicle, um, by, like, adding in vibrations and rev noises, even though it was fully electric, because they didn't wanna lose customers that wanted that feeling of driving, and that feeling of driving people associate with those vibrations and the engine noises. So, who knows? I think some electric cars will evolve to feel like the traditional motor engine, gasoline-powered vehicles. So crazy how things all come back into fashion, right? And hey to Scott, good to see Scott. And Corky Marie's in here as well. So let's get into a little bit more about these prosecutors. So prosecutors initially opposed vacating Jamerson's conviction. They relied on the original identification and the 1999 jury verdict to argue that his conviction should remain. On July 9th, 2024, Tulsa County District Judge David Gutin granted Jamerson's request to void the conviction. Gutin wrote that the newly discovered DNA evidence undermines confidence in the verdict and acknowledged that Jamerson's original trial had been flawed. The ruling detailed mistakes made by Tulsa police and prosecutors. The prosecution had relied on incomplete and misleading evidence, and police had falsely claimed the DNA evidence no longer existed. The judge concluded that if the new evidence had been available at the original trial, the jury likely would have reached a different outcome. And remember, this DNA evidence is saying it's not Jamerson. So, very likely. It would be scary if they didn't reach a different outcome if that was available at the first trial. And then we have a tidbit here, and I think it's worth reading here. Oklahoma ranks among the top states per capita for overturned convictions since 1989. Tulsa County alone has seen more than a dozen cases vacated after new evidence surfaced, according to data from the National Registry of Exonerations. Now, one way to read this is Oklahoma has had some bad prosecutions, and so they've got a lot to overturn. A second and perhaps overlapping way to read this is Oklahoma and Tulsa, they're doing the work to review and actually do intake on cases where there's concerns about the integrity of the trial verdict. And they're actually doing the work, they're doing the intake, they're doing the admin, they're doing the procedures, and they're going through these cases and they're coming to different resolutions when it's warranted. Um, so I don't know if I want to say, dang, Oklahoma has a lot of bad past, or if I want to say, yay, they're doing something about it. I think maybe a little bit of both. Now we are going to get to the backstory. So let's find out, and let me link to this article as well. And again, all this, it's going to be the same writer. So again, we're going to be reading with Dylan Goforth. And this time we also have Ziva Brandstetter. So always like to see journalists like follow a case for a long time. They usually have more intimate knowledge of the details. You guys know I sang my praises for Joseph Papp in like all the coverage of YSL, but also a lot of other coverage on Fulton County cases, and just always had such a detailed knowledge of what was going on and the backstory. So always appreciate seeing that. Let's get into this, you guys. This is going back to December 28th, 2023. So DNA evidence cast doubt on Henry Jamerson's rape conviction after 24 years in prison. Prosecutors are fighting efforts to clear his name. So at this point, prosecutors are still saying, nope, nope, he was guilty. The jury got it right. And eventually they're going to change their mind. So a new discovery follows years of claims that the evidence had been destroyed. The victim says doubts about the case always haunted her. So Kayleen Dubbs, so this is the victim, and guys, for what it's worth, we are going to have an open discussion on eyewitness reliability, and what somebody that goes through a traumatic experience will remember and say that they remembered. But Kayleen Dubbs is and was a victim here. The crime actually occurred. This is not a case of a complete false accusation. This is a case of misidentification. So Kayleen Dubbs is a victim. She was sitting in her car on a summer night in 1991, listening to the radio while waiting for her boyfriend to get off work. Two men approached Dubbs' car and one held a gun, telling the second man to watch her while he went inside to rob the Tulsa diner where Dubbs and her boyfriend worked. Just 16 and newly pregnant, Dubbs told police she was terrified as the lookout man pulled her from the car, pressed what she thought was a stun gun to her neck, and raped her behind a dumpster. Minutes later, the robber emerged from the diner's back door as Dubbs lay on the ground, pretending she fainted. Both men ran off into the darkness. Whoever robbed the store that night, May 24th, 1991, was never found. A Tulsa Police Department detective wrote that the robbery investigation bogged down and the file was turned over to the sex crimes unit. Dubbs, the only witness to report seeing the rapist, told police she thought she could describe her attacker. By late July, police prepared a report for prosecutors alleging that William Henry Jamerson, a 22-year-old former busboy at the diner, Ma Bell's, was the rape suspect. Jamerson was arrested, charged, tried, and convicted in a whirlwind of 3 months. Trial transcripts show prosecutors based their case on two pieces of evidence. Testing on semen recovered during Dubbs' sexual assault exam, they said put Jamerson in a, quote, narrow class of people who could have been the rapist, as well as Dubbs' supposed identification of Jamerson, including in a police photo lineup. And I think we're going to read a little more and then we're going to watch a video of Dubbs. Advanced DNA testing wasn't widely used in 1991, but a chemist testified during the trial that Jamerson was among the 20% of people who are non-secretors, meaning their blood type is not detectable in their semen. Police said tests done on the rape kit show the semen belonged to a non-secretor. Jamerson's attorneys opted to not cross-examine the chemist, telling jurors he feared the testimony would only confuse them. This is insane. So I didn't read this part. I don't know exactly what I thought the testing entailed. I just saw that it wasn't the same DNA testing that they would later use. So basically, this jury heard there's a 1 in 5 chance that, not even a 1 in 5 chance, 1 in 5 people could fall into the same suspect bucket. Your suspect bucket pool, your potential suspects are 20% of the population. Where is Doug with the reasonable doubt sign? Oh, man. I mean, there's no commentary I can give on this. I think it's pretty plain and clear that this is a ridiculous standard. And then the attorney doesn't cross-examine. Jamerson's trial lasted only 2 days. And if you're just joining, because I think I see Flesh of the Gods, the source popping in, good to see you. Also see Kay Cooper in the building. Also see Tamika Smith, thanks for becoming a member. And Flesh for being a member for 14 months, holy moly. If you guys missed it, we also just read that Jamerson's defense attorney didn't deliver an opening argument. like, oh my goodness. Just a mess. Just a mess. So his attorney, who lost his license, good, to practice law in 1995 for disciplinary reasons, according to the Oklahoma Bar Association, did not give an opening statement and did not call any witnesses. Jurors took about 3 hours to come back with a guilty verdict, and Jamerson was sentenced to 34 years on 3 felony counts. That's crazy. It was a verdict that Jamerson, who was 22 years old when he was sent to prison, has spent the last 30 years trying to undo. For decades, he begged the Tulsa County District Attorney's Office in letters and court motions to find and test the rape kit for DNA. Tulsa police said each time that the sexual assault examination evidence had been destroyed. But those repeated claims by police, including under oath in a 2020 court hearing, oops! I wonder if there were any repercussions for this. Those claims were wrong. The evidence police insisted for more than 2 decades had been destroyed was instead found last year in a police property storage facility. What does this mean for any other case that has also had something untested? And, that goes outside of we're here today to talk about wrongful convictions. What about cases where there hasn't been closure for the victims? And I mean, I'd argue this is not closure for the victim in this case. But I mean, cases where someone doesn't even think someone's been found, tried, identified, prosecuted, convicted, and they're a victim of something like a rape. And the attitude is just, oh, we don't have it. We don't have it. You had two decades, it seems like, to look for it and find it. 2 decades and you don't find it. So Jamerson spent nearly 24 years in prison before being released in 2015. Okay, so that's how we have the 24 verse he's been fighting for 30 some years. He has to register as a sex offender until 2025. So again, we heard in the most recent article that, that's part of the reason of why you want to fight something like this. You still have to fight for your innocence even when your sentence is completed. Jamerson's long quest to clear his name is detailed in a 56-page petition filed in August by attorneys Dan Smolin and Alan Smallwood, seeking to throw out his conviction. Prosecutors are pushing back. So this is, again, we're reading an article from December of 2023. Dubs, this is the victim, described the rape as only taking place for a matter of minutes and never testified that the assailant ejaculated. So the sample not belonging to Jamerson doesn't exclude him from being the rapist, they say. So the argument here then instead, this is really a prosecutor saying, we relied on non-secretor 20% possibility in front of the jury, putting him in as a possible, it could have been him. And now we're saying, oh, doesn't matter. We don't even need that evidence. We don't even need that like semen testing evidence. Doesn't matter. He's still guilty. Prosecutors also argue Dub's alleged identification of Jamerson as her attacker in 1991 is still evidence of guilt. All right, so now let's just go watch this. Let's watch this. So we're going to come back to where this says police records, but let's watch this interview that the Frontier did with Kaylee Dubs. Oh, is there not sound in the beginning? Okay. They just don't have sound playing for the first frame.
In your mind, all this time, have you always felt that that they got the guy that did it, that was the guy, or was there ever any question in your mind, or is that hard to?
Oh, it's always been a question in my mind. Always, because I'm one of those, I believe in God, and I would never want somebody that didn't do something to get punished for something like that. It's always bothered me.
Yeah. And when the police came, and they interviewed you guys there, I guess
they didn't really interview me. They wanted me to write everything down. So I wrote everything down that happened, which I'm sure they have a thing that says what all happened still somewhere. And I don't remember them really questioning me about much.
Did you recognize the guy that attacked you at all?
No, I've never seen that guy before.
Okay.
I've never seen either one of them. Like I said, I was new working there, though.
Yeah.
I don't know that area. This just happened to be a place we picked, and a restaurant. Let's see if we can get, a job here. We were 16. I was pregnant. We needed jobs.
And so the composite drawing, do you remember how that came about at all? Like, I know it's been a long time.
I was called in to do a sketch. They asked me if I could remember what the guy.
Yeah, so we are watching Kaylee Dubs. This is the victim. And remember, we just flipped over to this video after seeing, at least in the Frontier article, the prosecutor said, well, even if we can't rely on the secretor 20% evidence that we presented to the jury, the fact that the semen doesn't match someone doesn't exonerate him, because she never said he actually ejaculated. But in any case, her identification's still enough. And now she's already telling them, she's been telling them, I am horrified by this. So this is her speaking in 2023 while prosecutors are still fighting to keep this conviction on the books.
Guy's face looked like, and I said yes. And they said, well, we have a sketch artist, and we would like you to come in so he can, you could get with him and do a sketch of this face. And I said, okay. And that was the sketch that
Okay.
we have.
And so the guy had the hair or did not? There's been some question about the hair.
He had hair, but it was short.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Did it look like that?
I don't know if it looked like that. And the forehead, I don't remember any.
Muted, sorry. We have the composite sketch on the screen. This is what the composite artist drew with a description from Kaylee Dubs. Now, let's hop over, and I don't have a contemporaneous picture, but I don't see a resemblance. I just don't see a resemblance. I just don't see it. Like the head shape, this is like a very like small circle head. Like the hairline is here. And like sure your head might grow as you get like cuz he was 22 at the time, but it doesn't go from being like a perfect circle to like well-defined structured head. So, I don't know. I don't see it. But again, this composite image was based off her description of who she saw. And her description of what she saw does not look like Jamerson, in my opinion.
Lines in the forehead.
Right.
At all.
Right.
But I think it was maybe a little bit longer than that.
Okay. And then what do you remember?
So they gave us I'm assuming they don't really say, but I guess this was a closer in time. I mean, this is a white t-shirt, so maybe it's like after he's booked or something. I don't know. But still, look at like that is a totally different head shape. 20% of matching was enough for the drawing too, Nem says. Yeah, I guess it's the criteria we're going with. 20% rule. The 20% rule. So, oh, holy moly. It's like just draw like the regular smiley face with like the beady pen dot eyes and a little one-line smile and just say, hey, we think this is the person. We think this is the guy. Amy E is in the building. Amy E is gifting 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Amy. Guys, show Amy some love. We'll get her in the banner when we put the banner back up. I cannot move the caption since this is hosted by Vimeo. YouTube is what lets us move the captions around the screen. But I do want to make sure we show some love to Amy E, sponsoring 5 people, turning them green. Good to see you, Amy. We've also got Sabata. We've got Pam Entertainment TV in the building. Yeah, Pam also says doesn't look the same. And Pam, I was waiting for your stream yesterday, and then I didn't see you start. Tay Biz TV did the same thing. I thought Tay Biz was going to stream yesterday. I didn't see anything from Tay Biz. So I missed you guys. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone yesterday. But guys, I saw Pam Entertainment TV is going to be talking about the new lawsuit that Drake's got to deal with. So I'm going to drop a link to her channel as well if you guys want to see what's going on with that. I think that's tomorrow. You have that scheduled. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pam. And I think I've got to reshare Amy's channel because it's probably drowned out by now. So let me get those links. We'll keep this going.
And then what do you remember about the name Jameson? How did that come up?
They said they had found the guy that they believe is the guy that did it, and that his name was Jameson, and that he used to work there a while back. This was before I even got the job. You know what I mean? We hadn't been there that long. So, and I was like, oh, that makes sense, Dan. It's a place that he used to work. That was what was going through my head. That was the end of that, though. I gave them the face I saw.
So that's it. This is let's just run that back because it was like what 15 seconds. We have time. This is her recollection of what they cared to learn from her. Their key witness, the victim, the only eyewitness to the individual they're trying to identify. This is all that they cared about.
Before I even got the job, you know what I mean? We hadn't been there that long. So, and I was like, oh, that makes sense then. It's a place that he used to work. That was what was going through my head.
So the information that they're saying she identified him is really coming from them feeding her like, hey, we found a match. We found the individual. He used to work in that area, which is why he was there. We know it was him. They're supplying that information to their key witness. And they don't really do anything to ask her follow-up questions.
Head. That was the end of that, though. I gave them the face I saw.
Right.
And then they're the ones that later on was like, well, this is who this is.
Okay. So the police came. They figured it out. I guess after the sketch, they were like, "Oh, that looks like."
Yeah, they said there was a guy that used to work there.
Okay.
I've never seen him.
Yeah.
It was in the past, I guess.
Yeah.
And then it was a perfect match. His identity was a perfect match. They said they didn't know how I could do it so good.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they could be lying to me. I don't know. I don't know what they did to figure out who or what, but when they found Jamerson, they said it's an identical match.
They go and they give her all of this information. So if you're just listening, I'm going to pause to read what's on the screen here that they're showing. So this is the second page of a supplementary offense report relating to the Ma Bells. This is the diner for an armed robbery. Remember, at first they treated it as an armed robbery, but then moved it over to the sex crimes division. Detective D. Daniels interviewed the victim and had her do a composite drawing of the suspect. Daniels provided me with a copy of that composite drawing. While I initially examined the composite, I noticed the resemblance of that composite to be a standard police mug shot of William Henry Jamerson. Does this sound like anybody we know, chat? I mean, more than once, but this is the specific example I'm thinking of that I happen to have an overlay for that comes to mind for me personally. I don't think this is limited to Viverito and Hogan. Like, hey, that white Audi looks familiar. I think I know that car. Oh, I think I know somebody with that beanie hat. Oh, a pink beanie? Yeah. And again, they initially thought this was a robbery situation. So what's kind of weird to me is if they have records of at least one prior for Jamerson, and I'm assuming that it's because of maybe he was a prior suspect for a robbery, something similar. What if he was the individual that went inside? Because the story was two individuals pull up. One goes inside to do the robbing, and then the other stays behind to look out, and they're at the car, and then they rape Kaylee Dubbs. So if you recognize William Henry Jamerson because you think he has a history of robbing anyway, why would you suspect him of being the one that didn't actually do the robbing? So there's just a lot that doesn't even make logical sense. But anyway, so this guy or lady, I don't know, Detective Daniels, takes the photo and shows it to Dubbs. She too remarked, I think this is supposed to be T-O-O, but they spell it with one O. She too remarked that it had a remarkable resemblance of the master file photo of Jamerson. Daniel stated that she would have the photograph put in a photo lineup and then show it to her victim. So, investigation to continue. So they're going to put the photograph in the lineup.
So you must, like they said he worked there, but you must
Used
not
to.
have worked with him.
Used to work
Yeah.
there in the past. Now, I don't know how long in the past. That's all they told me. He used to work here. Somebody said to me, though, because how else would I have known that they said that this person used to work here?
Right.
And it looks just like him.
Wow.
And I've never met him.
But it wasn't like you picked his photo out of the lineup and said, "Oh yeah, that's the guy."
I don't remember any lineup.
Yeah, I didn't think. You did,
I
'cause
don't
thought you
think
told me
so.
last
I
time.
don't remember any lineup.
Right.
And I remember everything.
Yeah, you've got a great memory.
She just doesn't remember doing a lineup. And I don't know. She could just not remember. And she could think I should remember, so I didn't do a lineup because I would remember, and maybe that's inaccurate. Or the investigators, the police were just saying, we're going to write in this memo, internal note, in this file that we looked at these photos and decided we were going to put the photo in a lineup, but then don't actually do a lineup. And sorry, but I can very much believe that that's actually what happened. They said, we're going to write about doing a lineup because we think this photo, we the police think this photo looks like this composite sketch. We just did our own lineup. And we're at 4 minutes into this video, or 4 minutes remaining, depending on how they scrub this. I'm just going to assume that these are the comparison photos. Let's go back to them. Where was that one? Okay, it's not showing up very easily in the timeline. I thought it was right after this. So this is the composite.
A little bit longer than that.
Okay. And then
I don't know if this is the photo that what photo they had of him. If you brought these two photos to me, I would not even say, yeah, put it in a lineup.
Okay. And then
and call me bad with faces. I can be bad with faces, but I just don't see this one. Especially since he's bald. Look, he is bald. And then look at the composite. We have hair. We have hair.
great memory.
I do.
You don't forget.
But not with numbers and names.
Yeah.
But other detailed stuff, you better believe it.
Yeah.
I do.
So no, they never like brought you in and showed you some guys standing up, or put a bunch of pictures in front of you and said, pick out the guy.
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't get asked anything. I didn't get asked anything.
You did what they told you.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the DA has told Jimmy and Jimmy's told you, but there's a DNA test that has.
Well, he was asking my kid's father, had he had sex with me that night, trying to gather up, I guess, DNA, and there was some DNA that didn't match.
So I'm just wondering, like, I mean, does it surprise you? Like,
yeah, it does,
Yeah.
because they had me believing that
it was
this is it.
Right.
We're going to pause and read this. So this looks like it's from the report. It's starting on a line item 3, and it reads, the partial DNA profile obtained from the sperm fraction of sample, presumably the sample that they collected, is consistent with a mixture of 2 individuals, including Glenda Dubbs and 1 male contributor. Glenda Dubbs is expected to be present in the mixture obtained from the sperm fraction, and was subtracted from the mixture for interpretation purposes. I don't know if this is like, is that her name is supposed to be Glenda, not Kaylee, or is it saying that she matches Glenda mom, so there's going to be a familial match? Due to the limited data obtained, the deduced foreign alleles are only suitable for exclusion purposes. William H. Jamerson is excluded as a possible contributor of the foreign component DNA profile, deduced from the sample listed above. So this is from like recent years, like the last 3 years, 2 years. They finally get to test this kit that the Tulsa police had said, we don't have it for decades. We don't have it. It's just been sitting in storage, but we don't have it.
Exactly.
That's him.
That's what I mean.
I thought they got camera footage. They kept me out of the loop on a lot of things.
You feel like they wanted you to tell a certain story, like a certain version of events?
No, I feel like they put a story together.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's what I feel like.
Like you had ideas about how this might have happened.
Yes.
They didn't really want to hear
No.
all of it.
No.
That's
I'm not here to hurt the world. I'm not here to convict people that aren't guilty. I was 16. I was pregnant. I was scared. Yeah.
So you just did what they told you, and
I went through and I did what Vicky told me, and I just got on the stand like.
Vicky was the prosecutor at trial.
They said, I told my fans the questions, and did what they, So yeah, it's always bothered me. Right. It's always bothered me. I've talked about it before with my family. Like I don't, things just don't. I don't know.
About that night.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like they stopped looking for the robber too.
Right. Yeah. Whatever happened with him?
The second guy.
What happened to him? They could have found the robber. It's just things. That's what I'm saying. Things don't add up to me. It's been eating me alive ever since. It's just, it just does.
All right. So now we've got another. I think this is about the missing test. So this is dated July 5th, 2001, you guys. So this is in relation to William Jamerson. He's already in custody. Dear Mr. Jamerson, so they're presumably responding to one of the letters that we heard he used to write, asking if he could get the DNA evidence to test. Dear Mr. Jamerson, I reviewed the transcript from your trial. Oh, I'm laughing because it says John Floyd investigator DNA defense team. Um, my brain went to a different John Floyd, probably not the same. I reviewed the transcript from your trial and was able to track down the court reporter in your case to request that she search for any exhibits she might have. Unfortunately, she notified me that she had thoroughly checked all of her notes and records and found that she does not have any exhibits from your case. In addition, according to the clinic where the victim was examined, they do not have backup slides for the rape exam. As you already know, this is highlighted. The Tulsa Police Department destroyed whatever evidence they had in their possession. We have now exhausted all of our known options for locating evidence in your case. Since the requirement for acceptance into the DNA forensic testing program is the existence and availability of testable evidence, we must now close your file. I have already forwarded the name and address of a factual innocence program to your mother, but I have included it below as well. Perhaps they can help you or suggest other resources for you to explore. So this seems like it's coming from, oh, okay, the caption's blocking it. From someone that was perhaps trying to help Jamerson, but couldn't without any evidence to do anything with.
These things don't add up, and I'm like, this is so much deeper. Why is people not digging deeper? Why is this case not being brought up again? Why is that assistant manager not getting charged?
Yeah.
All right, we've got another email correspondence this time from July 21st, 2020. We're all the way in 2020 now. To Daniel Smullen, who's the attorney for Jamerson. It says, Dan, I was a little afraid of pushing up against another hearing date and did a little digging on my own. I had Sergeant Whitehead, unfortunate name, at TPD property conduct a thorough search, largely along the lines of Miss Fuller's affidavit. She reported to me this morning that her search in the forensic freezer and forensic refrigerator, the current property room and the old property room, and TPD labs do not have the sexual assault kit in this case. I am awaiting further word on their additional offsite location for storage. I would like to discuss this with you and go over what the next steps from here might be. Please call me anytime at your earliest convenience. My office phone is listed below, but I can largely be reached by cell anytime. Best wishes, Randall Young, Assistant District Attorney, and this is their post-conviction relief and appellate division. It's blocked, but it probably says like appellate unit division from the Tulsa County District Attorney's Office.
For being part of this. I know he was. I have had time to sit and watch how these cops do people and know how dirty they are. And when I thought the world of them.
Yeah.
And it's not that way. I am now almost 50 from 16.
Mhm.
And I have.
All right, so sorry we keep pausing, but this is how the video is moving with these different documents overlaid on the screen. So this looks like it's to MKEHO at tulsacounty.org. Oh, man. Another interesting name. This is May 13th, 2022, to Dan Smullen, the attorney, regarding disposition of evidence in the case. So, Mr. Smullen, I've been in contact with the Tulsa Police Department property room regarding the property in this case, specifically property receipt AA9462, item number 1, sexual assault evidence kit in name of victim. On April 12th, 2022, they informed me that the item in question was still listed in their Traces record system and that they would attempt to locate it. I believe I relayed this information to you shortly after I was provided with it, as I hope this information would help move this case forward. However, on May 12th, 2022, I was informed that the property, despite being listed in their record system, was not located at any of TPD's locations where property is stored. At this point, I have exhausted all my resources and possible information as to the location of this item and have not been able to locate it or adequately establish a chain of custody. Oh man, isn't it like, and if you've been on this channel long enough to watch like one trial, like when there's a chain of custody issue in the opposite direction, like prosecutor wants to be able to use something at trial, but there's a chain of custody issue, it's never damning, it never derails the case. Like it's like the holy grail of something being derailed over chain of custody is Judge Summers in the Rush trial. That's like the holy grail because it was such a rare thing to see. But here, oh, bad. We can't find the thing that would help exonerate you. Too bad, so sad. That's crazy. So you're dead in your attempt to exonerate yourself is dead in the water because we can't establish chain of custody.
Seen plenty of things in my life to know that things weren't like I thought they were with the
Yeah.
police.
Yeah.
Now,
Right.
had I known that then,
Right.
things would have been different.
I know.
Things would have been different.
Yeah.
I would have not being a child and so quiet and scared, I would have stood up and said, no, I want to see facts. I want to see this. I want to see that before you convict somebody and they spend their whole life, or more or less, in a prison cell.
Said something about Jimmy calling you like not long ago.
Said something about a DA was had called him and was asking him something about his DNA.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't even want to talk about it. I don't even know why this is being brought up.
Yeah.
What is going on? And then Jimmy, I forgot what he said.
Yeah.
He said something, and then he's like, I think I'm gonna call my ex-wife right now and talk to her. And that's when he called me. I'm like, I don't know nothing about no DEA. Hey, what?
And they haven't called you though.
No.
That's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it
You the
is.
victim.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't understand that. I'm like, why am I? He was doing dishes.
Right.
Why would they not contact me?
Right.
When everybody seems to want to contact me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That is odd.
It is odd.
Right. So there is that. We'll get back to the article. I thought it was really cool to be able to. I mean, to me, that's a really intimate look at the experience of the 16-year-old. And I mean, I could go down the same line. Well, maybe she had cognitive biases that influenced the way she described for the composite sketch. Maybe she was shown the pictures and was more inclined to think one person looked like another. But at the end of the day, I think it's really reasonable and probably likely that she was never shown a photo lineup. And more importantly than that, whatever she was doing, ultimately the police were feeding her information. And I think their biases already got that information put together that they just fed to her. So I think the issue started before the 16-year-old girl was asked to point a finger at somebody specifically. How do I go back? Okay, let me just open the article again because I don't see like an X button to get out of here. We're stuck. Okay, so we'll go over. We were down here somewhere. Okay, we were here. So before we get into that, I had bookmarked a bunch of your thoughts in the case. I want to start here before I forget, but Max, formerly known as Peter Max before the @name change on YouTube, says, I thought evidence was sealed after a conviction. I didn't know they could destroy it. And it's a bit of a sidebar, but if you guys haven't heard about it, Katie Conley, I think Oswego, New York, one of the O counties in New York, I think. Her conviction was overturned. There was an appeal, and the prosecution wants to retry her, but they want to retry her on involved with things that they themselves requested to be sealed. They wrote to the sheriff's office and requested certain evidence to be sealed. The defense attorneys, her appellate team, raised an issue with that, and the judge sided with the appellate team. So, Max, your comment made me think of that. If you guys haven't heard about that, that's the Katie Conley trial in New York. So, prosecutors stepped on their own rake over there with their attempts to seal certain evidence. And then, yeah, Sabata says, good to see you, Sabata. So they never identified the John Doe DNA. So they don't know who the DNA match was to. And the prosecutor's excuse now, or in 2023, was, well, the conviction should still stand because the victim didn't say that her rapist ejaculated or not. So we don't even know if the semen that we recovered and used at the trial to convict Jamerson was actually semen that was put on her or in her during the course of a rape. It could have been there for something that was consensual at an earlier point in time that same day. That was their counter argument. And again, they never at trial, they didn't actually have DNA testing done on the sample. They just did like a blood semen type of test and determined that I don't know. I don't know the science behind it. So let's just read this again because I can't spell it out any better. Advanced DNA testing wasn't widely used in 1991, but a chemist testified during the trial that Jamerson was among the 20% of people who are, quote, non-secretors, meaning their blood type is not detectable in their semen. So what this says to me is even if they were able to, if the sample was from a secretor, the most they would have is an indication of someone's blood type, which wouldn't narrow it down more than the 20%. At best, it would be whatever the most rare blood type was. You could say it's narrowed down to that possible pool of people that have that blood type, and this defendant does or does not have that blood type. It's not very reliable. Not very reliable, but this is why we keep saying 20%. I think Nem said, all right, so it only has to be a 20% possible match to the composite sketch. Just crazy, just crazy. And I really just don't have doubts that there are plenty more cases where this same type of thing got somebody convicted. This 20% rule. Just crazy. And Pam had said the Drake stream's going to be tomorrow. A. Whaley, good point, says, I mean, the prosecution was wild, but that same jury was cool with 20% too. And that's why, I think on one hand, I think it's kind of rough sometimes that someone that goes through something tragic or humiliating or embarrassing of no fault of their own, they're the victim of something, you know, there's a trial watching community, there's a true crime community, there's the internet, there's the social media discourse that has all these theories about everything. And I think that's a downside of a growing attention, popular culture attention on criminal justice and trials and true crime. But at the same time, I would hope that, and sometimes I wake up and I see stupid posts on Twitter, really, really bad takes that I can't even fathom how somebody would get there. And I think I'm open-minded to a lot of different perspectives, even if I wouldn't personally get there myself. There are some that I just can't even conceive or comprehend how somebody would get to the conclusions that they hold. But I'd like to think that if 30 years ago we had juries that were cool with this 20%, I really hope that overall, like the level of education about trials, about wrongful convictions, about, hey, just because someone's arrested and something is stated in a probable cause affidavit doesn't mean that that's actually going to be what pans out when we get to hear the opposing argument or as the case develops. So we might take things and run with it, but let's be just as loud with our reactions when we learn new information. I'd really like to think that a modern day jury would not be cool with this 20%. But there's still been some cases that kind of blew my mind. So, I don't know. I'm hopeful for progress, but I'm not sure that we're there entirely. But this is a great point. Slim Life says, will you cover the Brian Walsh trial? I think we had an interesting turn of events with the Brian Walsh trial, you guys. So if you missed it, Brian Walsh, who is accused of killing his wife and then like dismembering and then disposing of her body parts, he pled guilty to the counts relating to dismembering the body and moving and throwing away the body, dumping the body parts. But he's still going to trial on the murder charges. And strategically, although I think the jury will get to hear that I think it's going to be a defense strategy. Hey, opening statements. He's willing to tell you he found his wife, who knows, found his wife and panicked and didn't know what to do. But it's hard to imagine what any one of us would do in a situation like that, where if you're the one that calls it in, the cops are going to suspect you immediately, even if you didn't kill your wife, kill your spouse. They're going to look at you first. He's admitting to hiding it, and trying not to get too involved with talking to the police, misleading them. But he did not kill his wife, right? So I think we're going to see an interesting strategy in that case. I think that's the angle the defense is going to take. And then prosecutors, since they don't need to prove they don't need to prove these two crimes, these two counts that he's now pled to, I think we're going to have different evidentiary rulings than we would have if all of the counts were on the table, because certain stuff won't be as relevant anymore. So I don't know if I'm personally going to cover it. I don't know how long it's supposed to last, but I think a lot of people are planning to stream that one because I saw the name. I think a lot of people were going to stream it today, but it's kind of a day behind because they did the pleas this morning. So I don't know if I'll stream that. I mean, I'll marinate it on overnight and think about it. But I would imagine Nick Staro's probably doing it, Melanie Little, a lot of the same creators that have been focused on everything going on in Massachusetts, I think would be covering that as well. So Richard Allen, I'm going to defer entirely to Andrea Burkhart whenever she does any lives, as well as Nick Staro. And I follow that a lot more over on X. So I think there's way too much sleuthy goosey as well for the documents. Criminality. It's spelled like criminality, but she capitalizes the T at the end. I think because her name is Teresa, so that's why she gets the T. Have also been covering Richard Allen and all of like the document dumps that are coming out after. I think he deserves another trial. I don't think that trial was right. I think he might actually be factually innocent. But whether he was factually innocent or not, I still think he deserves a new trial. I don't think his trial was fair. I think his rights were violated. But yeah, so so I don't think I'm going to cover that one because I don't think I would do it justice. There's so many documents, we would be here for like 3 months straight trying to read through them all. And I just don't have the in-depth knowledge, I think, to pass along that advocacy. But I will advocate behind all of the sleuths and those that are covering it. So, and again, that trial was not televised. So overarching theme of this channel, give us some transparency. It'll go a long way. It'll go a long way. Let's get back over to this, you guys. And actually, one more thing. It was Monica, and I don't think I've seen Monica in here today, but Monica had sent an email in throwing her hat in the ring here for a suggestion on a trial rewind and suggested the Travis Rudolph trial. I loved every second of that trial. I watched it mostly over with the lead attorney in AV to the Seventh Power. I think AV is covering the Kieran Lead lawsuit as we speak, so we might redirect over there when we're done with this. We still got some to get through, but we'll redirect over there if she's still alive. I love the Travis Rudolph trial. It wasn't that long of a trial. Florida self-defense trial, but it involved going off of the property where the assailants, we can call them, I think, officially, arrived. And the pursuit followed into the street. And the theory of self-defense could have shifted in any moment, depending on how the jury saw the evidence. And obviously the trial's over. You guys may or may not already know the jury outcome, the verdict outcome. I think we've talked about it on this channel. But I do actually think that'd be a good rewind trial. So I'll be marinating on that. I'd like your guys' feedback if you'd follow in, if you guys have seen that or not, if you guys would want to rewatch it or watch it for the first time. But that was really one of my favorite cases to watch. So I'm open to it and leaning like 51% towards doing that. And since it's a replay, we could skip breaks and everything. So just to put that idea out there for you guys. I also said I'd put this banner back up. Now that we're done with the video, I can. So thank you again, Amy E., our stream sponsor, for generously gifting 5 memberships here. And then we'll get, Curious Laces. That was such an interesting trial. It was interesting. It had some entertaining moments. It had a lot of life lessons too. Why put yourself in a stupid situation? And I like trials like that because, for what it's worth, I'm very happy with the outcome Travis Rudolph got, but he really could have been facing serious time. I mean, Florida, if you have a firearm, like whatever you'd be facing because of a murder charge, a murder count, whether it's second or jury finds manslaughter or lesser included. When there's a firearm aggravating factor in Florida, it just like boop, your years that you're facing jumps up. So very, very risky trial, very risky to do any type of self-defense really anywhere, but I think Florida, you've really, really got to hope that the facts, the circumstances are in your favor, or a jury could go either way. So we were over here where police records was where we left off. So we just watched, Kaylee Dubs, her video, her interview with the Frontier, that's the publication we're reading all this coverage from. So, like, again, very grateful that they've been following this case in detail because it isn't always easy to figure out what happened decades ago. So, police records state Dubs picked Jamerson out of a photo lineup. But now, Dubs, who still lives in the area, told the Frontier she didn't remember seeing a photo lineup. It was Tulsa police, Dubs said, who told her Jamerson was her rapist. The Frontier does not identify victims of sexual violence without their consent. So this is why they're clarifying why we're saying her name. And we get a quote, I think, from what we just watched. So I was 16, I was pregnant, I was scared. I just did what Vicky Sousa, the prosecutor, told me. I got on the stand and did what they said and answered the questions. It always bothered me. Things didn't add up to me. It's been eating me alive ever since. Tulsa County District Attorney Steve Kunzweiler. These names are kind of crazy because I could pronounce that in an awkward way. As this is custom with an ongoing case, declined to be interviewed for the story. So I don't think this wasn't the district attorney at the time. He also declined to view the Frontier's recorded interview with Dubs, which is a bit interesting because maybe Dubs has already been able to have a conversation with the district attorney's office, but maybe they've been ignoring her because they don't want to admit that, hey, even if this DNA evidence now excludes, we don't know if the ejaculation even matters. That ejaculation could have been from somebody other than a not non-consensual interaction. But we still have Dubs identifying Jamerson. Maybe that's why we don't want to watch this interview. And maybe they haven't been listening to their key witness. The only remaining evidence was some legs, where if they listened to her, it would no longer have any legs. Maybe that's why they don't want to hear her. After 2 decades in prison, Jamerson cuts a soft-spoken, humble profile. He said he's worked to overcome the anger that filled him years ago at being accused and imprisoned for a crime he says he didn't commit. He said he wants to clear his name while his mother, Donna, 81, is still alive. Can you imagine losing a parent and not being able to, clear your reputation with, your mom or dad or anyone that you care about? What if your spouse dies and they think that they died thinking that you raped somebody else? And they're not alive for you to clear your name. So Jamerson says, I kept fighting because I knew I didn't do anything wrong. Smolin notes Jamerson's case didn't happen in a vacuum. Police also repeatedly insisted DNA evidence had been destroyed in the case of Cedric Courtney. So there you go. We've been saying, is this the only time it happens? So Cedric Courtney was convicted in 1995 of armed robbery after a woman was blindfolded and beaten during a break-in in her apartment in Tulsa. She told police she believed it was Courtney who attacked her. A Tulsa police laboratory analyst testified that hair found at the scene was similar to Courtney's. Similar? Oh my God. No, chat. Now we're going to do the 20% hair match, aren't we? As in Jamerson's case, it was too early for advanced DNA testing. Courtney was convicted based on the victim's identification. She was blindfolded. See, this is exactly what gives credence to Dub saying, I would remember if I did a photo lineup. Sure, people can forget things, but I believe Dub saying, like, I don't think I did one because I don't remember that, and I would remember that. Because it seems like the police did the same thing here. How else would this woman be able to identify somebody? Are we going to hear that, oh, I recognize the voice? Or was it, hey, we found the guy that did it. Oh, okay, great. I trust you guys. This is crazy. They did a photo lineup. How did they do a photo lineup when someone was oh my god. Guys, I'm yelling at my computer. As in Jamerson's case, it was too early for the DNA testing, so they just have hair that was similar, whatever that means. And then Courtney was convicted based on the victim's identification, including from a photo lineup. So they have the hair and a photo lineup from someone that was blindfolded. We don't have anything that says identified the voice or like a smell, which you could challenge those things, but I'm just saying. Like, honestly, I think it'd be more compelling to have a voice recognition than a photo ID from someone that was blindfolded. Oh my gosh, I'm losing my voice because I'm yelling. This is crazy. There's been a lot of sighs, factual lie. Also, I had sent another gift to Miss Wiggins' class after seeing your PayPal. I had sent one while we were live, but then saw that you sent like 25, which we sent more games because those games were not 25 apiece. So thank you again for doing that factual lie. And good to see you. Also, while I'm looking over here, thank you, Amy E. Let me scream for positivity. Amy E sent in a super chat. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Amy E, for the avocado. I always love the avocado stickers. Thank you for all your support. Not just financial, but Amy, you give so many kind words and keep me going. So big thank you to you. Just like, let me take a break from yelling at my screen. Let me take a break from yelling at the screen. Oh man. Aaron says Curtis Flowers' mom Lola died before his exoneration. That's I would think about that for so long. Like, I don't really care if people have the wrong impression of me. Like, you're gonna come to a certain determination and decide what you want to decide. This weekend, there was a whole discourse over on X about Ian Runkle and his charity stream because not Alan, David Yannetti and Bob Alessi, attorneys for Karen Reed, they joined to participate in his fundraising stream. Like, they just joined as guests on the stream. And while they were talking about the cause, Bob Alessi was like, I think I could find something to donate. And I think the chat suggested a tie. So he's like, all right, yeah, I'll get a tie. And then when David Jackson came, why am I screwing up their names? David Yannetti joined. He was late. His time zones were off. So he joined after Bob had that conversation with Ian Runkle. He was like, yeah, I'll donate a tie. So they did a charity auction. They auctioned off a bunch of stuff. And impromptu, they added in a tie from both of the two attorneys. And Yannetti's tie went for $8,100 was the top bid. So Renee was the final bidder. She made the $8,100 donation through Extra Life, the fundraiser that Ian is doing and sending all the funds to the Stollery Children's Hospital. And people were on the internet like losing their minds about it. Just losing their minds about it. And Ian, I hope Ian's doing well. I hope Ian's ignoring all of that. Those are the types of things that like might bother me. I might take offense to, but when I think about it, what does it really matter if somebody has a stupid take and wants to condemn someone raising $8,100 for a children's hospital fundraiser? I can get over that. But somebody that I care about thinking that I did something heinous, or even worse, not even thinking that I did something heinous, but like, do you know how guilty it would make me feel if I was innocent and I had to watch my mom trying to fight and advocate for me and my mom felt helpless? I don't like to see my mom feel helpless. I think it might even be better if she thinks I was actually guilty of what I was accused of because watching my mom feel like she was like unable to fight, to see her get deflated because she felt like there was nothing she could do when she was fighting for me, I think that would be horrible. So to hear stories like this, like Curtis Flowers, that's serious stuff. So yeah, and Aaron, I think this is in reaction to the 8100 for the tie. Yeah, that's amazing. And somehow, and somebody got in a thread with me about it, and I don't even remember how it devolved, but when they couldn't counter an argument, their response was, "Well, Yannetti goes to strip clubs." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Okay, well, like, how are we just, what is the argument even anymore?" So this all started with an issue with Ian Runkle's fundraiser, and now it's devolving into, I don't know if it's true or not, and I don't care if it's true or not. I don't see what difference it would make if Yannetti goes to strip clubs. But that's what this person was telling me on Twitter. I was like, okay, so he's lit. Like, I hope he takes the tie off at the strip club. Like, is he donating ties at strip clubs as well? Like, what is the relevance of this point? Yeah, 403. It was a 403 argument. Did he hit 100? Let's see. Oh my God, you're right. Woo! Because he was sitting like 1,000 and change away when I last looked. Oh, half Irish. The chat was flying during those bids. And for the top amount, it was like 3 or 4 people still competing when it was above 3,000. And then in the final stretch, it was 2. But yeah. And you can see Renee, like, she put the money through. It's right here. So shout out to Georgia Hello Kitty, who I think got to the goal. Oh yeah, she says, "God bless you. Couldn't let you miss your goal." And shout out, you see all of these. How much can we see? But this is the impact of just a little bit from a lot of people can do. So obviously these are big chunks here. But look at these, like $10, $5, like all of this stuff pooled together got to the goal of 100,000. And this is US dollars. This is US dollars to the Stollery Children's Hospital. And when I donated, I included payment processing fees. So I don't think this calculation, I don't think any money is subtracted from this net amount. I think this is the net amount that's going to go to the hospital, not considering any fees that may have been taken out. So super, super, super awesome. Thank you so much for pointing out that the goal has been met. That is awesome. Very, very good cause. I don't even know where my article tab was. Should I find the strip club one? Hold on. Let me find the strip club comment. I still can't believe it. Okay, wait. This was the tie. This is while they were auctioning it off. So it was the yellow tie. I think Alessi's went for several thousand as well. Where was the strip? Yeah, okay. uh, where did it go? He sent it as a double reply. Oh, I pointed out they assumed that when you donate something to an auction, that you as the donor of the item get to claim the amount the item's auctioned off for as a tax deduction. And first of all, a tax deduction doesn't work out that it's just like, hey, if I have a deduction that I'm claiming for $8,000, I get a free $8,000. That's not how tax deductions work, period. But a second issue is Nate didn't have an understanding of a tax basis. So a taxable basis for a tie that you donate wouldn't be the amount that someone's willing to pay for it at an auction. That person that's paying the 8,100, the donor of the funds for the purchase, would have they'd be able to keep the receipt as a deduction for that $8,100. But the taxable basis for the tie for Yannetti would be the amount of money he paid for the tie, the fair market value of the item that he's donating, plus or minus any depreciation. So when I pointed that out, is this where he gets the 2 replies? When I pointed that out, the response then became, besides, Yannetti drops thousands at local strip clubs all the time. Like, what does it matter? What does it matter? Is it the implication that he's immoral because he spends money at a strip club? But how does this relate to criticism of the charity or being incorrect about the implication that they got an $8,100 tax deduction? So I didn't even respond to this one. I sat here staring at it for like 5 minutes though when I saw it. I was like, this can't be real. This is the scary type of person that could be on a jury, just wanting to think somebody's evil and convicting them no matter what the evidence does or doesn't show. So that's scary. That is scary. But overall, I'm very glad that Ian Runkle hit that goal. We will be doing a roulette of sorts of fundraising efforts until the Christmas season ends. So anytime I go live, which I'm sorry that it's always unplanned, we'll try to pin up a good cause. Today, the cause was Ian Runkle's, and he met the goal. He met the goal, chat. So, yeah, strippers need money too. So I think, keep the cash economy going. I think it's a pretty important part of the economy. So, we've got, Kitty Cat. If you weren't here in the beginning, Kitty Cat, I had mentioned, I believe you also had sent a board game after we were live. So thank you again in case you missed that at the beginning. And then from one cat to another, big hearts. Well, thank you right back at you. Also, shout out Big Baby Jane. Good to see you. Always good to see you. Oh, I didn't know that Runkle and Rob, I'm assuming Law and Lumber, have a thing about a yellow tie. Like they don't like when attorneys wear yellow ties or something in court. Oh, okay. So Aaron with the context says in Curtis Flowers' case, his parents thought he was innocent. So that would be the scenario where parent can't feel like they succeeded in protecting or helping their child. Adult child, young child, doesn't matter. Parents wanting to protect a child that's still a real and serious feeling, no matter what age their child is, right? So that's rough. And then secondly, people in the town set the family home on fire and threw bricks at their church at the funeral. It was bad. I hope those people got prosecuted. That's not right. And I try to tread very lightly when I don't like to criticize how a victim reacts to things. But as a third party that's just following the news and taking a vigilante citizen type of approach to, wow, let's just light someone's home on fire. I hope they got charged. Like, that's not right. That is, ugh. Wait, so is this during the Johnny Depp trial? So Half Irish says Rob lent Runkle a yellow tie and Runkle came home with it. So it's the yellow tie that never got returned. And we're switching back between happy and sad stories. So Aaron says they did not get prosecuted. And that's the thing. Put the people that are burning the houses and throwing bricks on trial. Especially, I'm sure, if this was more modern times, someone was probably taking a video of it. So it's hard for me to think that there's no evidence, that they can't figure out who was involved. And then let them fight their case, right? Innocent until proven guilty. Make sure you have the right person. But to not even arrest, try to not even prosecute is the things that get prosecuted compared to the things that don't get prosecuted just continues to blow my mind. So, oh my goodness. We've got back to Jamerson, but we were segueing because Jamerson's attorney is now telling us about a similar situation with the case of Cedric Courtney, convicted of a 1995 armed robbery after a woman who was blindfolded. He was convicted based on photo lineup and testimony about a recovered hair that didn't actually have DNA testing. It was just looked at and deemed to be similar enough. The innocence, and I see issues where like beauticians get criticized for not understanding the type of hair that they're working with. And that's 2025. That's these days, current times, where there's a lot more content and education and, just discourse, commentary, awareness, education about different hair types. So if beauticians are still getting criticized for getting hair types wrong, how do we have any faith that like a random person analyzing a piece of hair can say that hair is similar or not back in 1995? Like, that's crazy to me. And then again, I still don't understand the photo lineup from a blindfolded witness. So the Innocence Project began requesting access to the DNA evidence from Courtney's case in 2007, but Tulsa police said the evidence had been destroyed. I think we have a pattern. It was eventually located. Oh my God. And when tested, guess what, guys? Do I even need to read the next line? Missing kit. Oh, it's found. Oh, it ruled out the person we arrested, prosecuted, and ultimately got convicted. It rules them out. So his conviction was overturned, and he later won an $8 million settlement against the city of Tulsa for his wrongful conviction. And then we have a stat that we saw. It's a bit of a different stat, though. It says Oklahoma ranks 10th per capita in the country in overturned convictions, with 45 total since 1989. According to the National Registry of Exonerations, 16 of those wrongful convictions were in Tulsa. And I think there's been a lot of research. They've kind of been putting the fire under New York's conviction integrity units. So, CIU is the acronym over there, but it's really, they do post-conviction case integrity review. And there's been a ton of funding in New York State that's gone into these initiatives, gone into financing these units. They can have staffing and do whatever testing they need to do. And they've exonerated, like, their case intake has been less than 8. I think they're up to 8 now this year. And they took 1 case in. They actually went forward in turning over 1 case. So when I said earlier that I don't know if Oklahoma just has a lot of bad cases, because that seems like that's probably true, the silver lining is at least they're overturning 45 compared to 1 in New York State. I'm going to tip my hat a little bit, ever so slightly, to Oklahoma for actually trying to correct some of the wrongs. And I hope they keep going. Hope they keep going with it. So, years of denials, then a surprising twist. So, I don't know where we're going to go with this, but let's see how this article from the Frontier continues. So in 1991, advanced DNA techniques now taken for granted in courtrooms were not widely used. Instead, prosecutors in his case relied on serology, the study of blood. At the time of Jamerson's trial, DNA testing was in its infancy. So investigators would look within the semen to see if blood had been secreted, and then use that information to determine blood type. Jamerson's conviction rested on 2 things: Dubb's alleged identification of Jamerson, and the serology results done on semen collected during her sexual assault examination. Trial transcripts show prosecutors told jurors the results of the test couldn't confirm Jamerson as a source, but they couldn't rule him out either. So, yep, now we have a way to rule him out. Should absolutely undermine the confidence in the conviction. During closing arguments, prosecutor Vicky Sousa told jurors the case was airtight. How can you, within the same trial, tell jurors, well, the test can't confirm or rule out, and then also say the case was airtight? Oh my God, there's a quote. So Vicky Sousa at trial said, in closing, in some cases you only have circumstantial evidence, and in other cases you have just the eyewitness or victim's testimony. Ladies and gentlemen, in this case you have both. I wish I could slap her. It's not advocating violence, but like a reality check. That's crazy. Reached by phone, Sousa declined to be interviewed by the Frontier. As DNA testing became more prevalent and reliable, Jamerson pleaded from prison for someone to test the sample, convinced it would rule him out as a suspect. The Oklahoma Indigent Defense System, which provides legal services for people in the criminal justice system who can't afford an attorney, even obtained a grant in the years after Jamerson's conviction to test DNA in questionable convictions. But no matter who asked for the sample, they were met with the same roadblock, that the Tulsa Police Department claimed to have destroyed it. So we saw this, these were some of the overlays that we saw on the screen when we were watching the video. So in 2001, we saw the reply after Jamerson asked, I guess, the Indigent Defense System, IDS, to test the rape kit, but they informed him it was impossible. As you already know, the Tulsa Police Department destroyed whatever evidence they had in their possession. So we saw that in the correspondence. In 2002, Jamerson wrote the Tulsa court clerk, Sally House Smith, asking her to check for evidence, but none was found. The Indigent Defense System wrote to Jamerson in 2014 that the DNA forensic testing program had been discontinued, but the letter gave Jamerson a lifeline, something that would connect him with the attorney who made a crucial breakthrough in his case. However, wrote Indigent, okay, this is where I found a document from the Tulsa Police Department's legal advisor in which the status of your case ... is addressed. The document was a 2001 memo from the Tulsa Police Department's legal advisor at the time, telling the Indigent Defense System that the rape kit Jamerson was seeking had been in an evidence building known as the Trenton facility, but it was destroyed via court order in 1995. Dang, so they destroyed it like as soon as the conviction? Because he was convicted in 1995. In 2016, 1 year after being released from prison, Jamerson traveled to Smolin's office holding a nearly 20-year-old story from the Tulsa world. Smolin, a civil rights attorney whose firm has a history of taking on law enforcement misconduct, immediately took an interest in Jamerson's case. In the 2001 news article, then Tulsa Police Chief Ron Palmer told the paper evidence from 10 cases, including Jamerson's, had not been destroyed and in fact remained in the department's possession untouched. Oops. Oh, and they've got this uploaded to Document Cloud. So this is the secret sauce. So it was supposed to be destroyed and they were telling him it was destroyed even after May of 2001. But this article has a quote from Chief Ron Palmer saying otherwise. So police show items from 5 of 10 violent crime cases under question. So they're opening boxes and spreading the evidence on a table, just like Love going through the APD office boxes on a Friday night. Tulsa police on Friday honored a Tulsa World request to view forensic items that had recently come under question. Wrapped in brown paper, marked with numbers and notations regarding the contents, evidence from 5 cases was shown by Forensic Lab Director Mark Bosey and Officer Bob Karowski, who was assigned to the department's property room. Evidence from 4 other cases was not available, having been destroyed years earlier per court order. Evidence from a 10th case, all right, so turned over to an agency in NYC. Let's see what they were doing. So the 10 cases came into question Tuesday when the director of the Oklahoma Indigent Defense System said the evidence may have been destroyed last weekend. However, Police Chief Ron Palmer said nothing of the kind happened and that the items in the police department's possession remained untouched. Palmer maintained that the only police activity involving evidence Saturday was a biannual auction in which bicycles, furniture, pagers, this is a while ago, we've got pagers being auctioned off, and other articles recovered during police work were sold to the public. So this sounds just like civil forfeiture and not so much evidence. Items that were sold had been on a 300-page list of evidence in the police department's possession that had been court cleared for sale or destruction. Defense System Executive Director Jim Bednar asked May 4th that biological evidence in the 10 cases be secured. The evidence pertains to 10 men who are serving prison time for rape or murder convictions. Bednar said the cases may depend on evidence where new DNA testing techniques might exonerate inmates. The defense system has been authorized to provide DNA testing for inmates whose convictions were based on physical evidence before DNA testing was possible. So a law signed, all right, So they have the evidence for this and more for 9 other cases at this point in time. And then this was May, right? Yeah, so this was May. And then a month before this article was written, a law was signed, which will take effect in July 2001, will prevent the destruction of biological evidence in a case while the person convicted of the crime remains incarcerated. So there you go. It hadn't been destroyed yet, and now there's a law that there shouldn't be destruction. Bednar said in a Thursday letter to Palmer that he had asked that, in the spirit of new legislation, the police department refrain from destroying any biological evidence until such evidence could be thoroughly reviewed. Although Palmer met that request in those of the 10 specific cases in the police department's possession, he said he would not secure any other biological evidence already approved by the courts for destruction. Now, remember, the story is apparently that it was destroyed, for Jamerson's case, that it was destroyed in 1995. It obviously wasn't destroyed in 1995 if it exists today. And if we don't have a court order ordering the destruction between 1995, when it was supposedly already destroyed, and this time, then why would they think it was? I don't know. This is just sloppy. Bednar said he left the meeting under the impression that the police department didn't know what would be destroyed and what would be auctioned. Your collective response was that it was too burdensome to go through each item listed in the court's order to determine whether the item could be categorized as or contained biological evidence, Bednar wrote to Palmer. Bednar also told Palmer that quotes in a Wednesday Tulsa World article had been taken out of context in regard to the destruction of evidence on Saturday. Palmer said he was already stretching the order of the court by singling out the 10 cases Bednar wanted preserved, and said he presumed that Bednar's request was spurred by a recent Oklahoma City case. In that instance, the state freed Jeffrey Todd Pierce, who served nearly 15 years in prison after being wrongfully convicted of rape in Oklahoma County. A DNA test of semen taken from the victim exonerated Pierce, who was convicted in 1986 and sentenced to 65 years in prison. So imagine you're here at this moment in time in 2001. And hey, there's a new law that's about to go into effect. We have a very real example because this is back in 2001. Jeffrey Todd Pierce has his conviction overturned because DNA testing now clears him. So it was very important that we still had that kit. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to correctly ensure justice for the victim that was assumed to be the victim of Jeffrey Todd Pierce. Why, after this is all happening, would anyone be like, oh, it's a stretch for me to even preserve these 10 case files? Preserve them all, especially since the law going into effect wants you to preserve anything relating to a case where the person convicted is still incarcerated. So, for Pierce, a DNA test of semen taken from the victim exonerated him. Bednar said the 10 cases in question looked like ones in which DNA testing could set the inmate free or nail them cold. And if it could nail them cold, then the prosecution should not be concerned that a victim's going to lose their justice. Because if you convicted them at trial by saying, hey, we have this testing, this serum testing, if you were correct, the DNA evidence should bolster that. And if you're incorrect, you should want to correct the mistake. In his letter to Palmer, he said that the Oklahoma Indigent Defense System had identified them as likely candidates for further forensic testing. The defense system has assigned 2 attorneys to investigate the evidence in the 5 cases in which evidence is held at a city facility at Trenton Avenue. They may request that tests be conducted at the Tulsa Police Department's forensic lab, or that the evidence be shipped to an independent lab for testing, a defense system official said. Palmer said the police department may continue to destroy other biological evidence per court order prior to July 1st, when the state statute takes effect. So this seems like a really contentious issue that Ron Palmer didn't want to lock down a position on back in May of 2001. So that's what we had referenced here. I think that was a good side story there. Yeah, it seems very crooked, that's for sure. Um, Thank you also, Amy, with the kind words, saying appreciate all your love and support. Seriously, right back at you. Right back at you. Sheriff Chuck with the very good questions, as always. If there's no destruction of evidence, how does the state cover up their crimes? That seems unfair. Like, holy moly. Martinez says they were supposed to destroy it, but they forgot and they messed up. Oopsie. Like, Adventure Aaron says, well, she said it was airtight in her Woody voice, so they should have known she was lying. We're gonna have to get an airtight emoji. Simply AMAC, I'm not sure on the next Moontoon hearing. There's a possibility. I think they have it docketed for sometime in December, but there's a possibility that they won't hear oral arguments and could remand it back down in the meantime. So won't know until we know. But Jim has been doing ongoing updates on not just the Moontoon case, but some others. So if you guys aren't already following him over on X, Jim/Hal, there's his link there. But that is still, we're waiting to see. I'm waiting there right with you. And good to see you, by the way. Yeah, Aaron. So they're getting rid of stuff before the law bars them from doing so. Just crazy. Scott says Runkle stole Rob's lucky yellow tie. Oh no. Oh no. I hope that's a thing that goes on and on forever, is like the forever inside. Well, it's not really an inside joke, because there's like, I would assume thousands of people that are in on it, that are aware of it. But I hope that's an ongoing joke, because I love that a lot. I love both. I don't really see Law and Lumber stream all that much. When I do, it's with Ian for their Friday night things. Um, but what an appearance he made on the scene during the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. It was just like, I don't remember. Did he join like a Nick Rekieta stream or like Legal Bites or someone that was streaming the trial? I can picture him. He was working in, he likes woodworking. So he joined a stream. I don't even think he officially had a channel. He just had like, everyone has an account to watch YouTube with. And he's just like casually tinkering away in his woodworking setup in his garage or something. And they're going on with the testimony. And like the second day that he was tuned in watching as a guest is when we get to the point in testimony where Amber Heard has to describe the bed frame. And it's like this super expensive hardwood bed frame that she describes Johnny Depp as having split, as if his boot stepping on it. So he's wearing boots, and that's where he's like holding her hostage with one hand and punching her with another while also standing with his boot on the bed frame. She said the word purchase, which is a term like splitting between wood grains to help split bigger pieces of wood apart. And Rob just lit up. And then like the next day he puts together this whole video about how that type of wood wouldn't be able to split from a boot being like someone leveraging their body weight with one leg wearing a boot on this bed frame. Like he just skyrocketed. The video got like 1 million views. Okay, yeah, it was Legal Bites channel. And knew Penny as Karate the judge. So God, that is such good lore. What a way to start off your YouTube channel. So that is who I mean when we're talking about Ian Runkle and Law and Lumber, or Rob. That's why he goes by Law and Lumber. He likes the law, he likes lumber, and his first video was about that hardwood bed frame analysis. No. Oh, I like Kurt. I do like Kurt's Supreme Court analysis when he covers SCOTUS opinions. So I'm going to read the first part here. He got 100K subs overnight. Kurt is still jealous. I wouldn't say I'm jealous because I don't know. I feel like having a large following can be difficult. And I don't really envy people that have to start managing and their chat might feel like work more than fun, hanging out. Like, I think of this as like we're all hanging out in a living room reading about a crazy news story. Um, so I'd say I'm jealous too, but I'm not sure I'm actually jealous of that feat. But I always love to see other people make it there. So we've got what else we got going on? So we did a side story onto this 2001 news article that dove down into this pending legislation at the time that you're not supposed to be able to destroy evidence, including sexual assault testing kits, where it relates to a case where somebody's still incarcerated. Uh, and then what happens? So the article stated that two indigent defense attorneys were investigating the evidence held at the Trenton Avenue facility. Smolin said that he worked on other cases where supposedly destroyed or missing evidence had been found. So Jamerson's assertion that his innocence could be proven if they could locate the DNA wasn't outlandish. So we heard about the example with Mr. Courtney above. This is that I don't think that was Smolin's first and only rodeo before Jamerson came into his office. So Smolin seems like he already had to deal with this multiple times. But it was mostly Jamerson's patient and calm demeanor that drew Smolin in. Over the next 4 years, Smolin would repeatedly ask for Tulsa police to produce the rape kit, which he was convinced still existed. And for years, Tulsa police would tell him it had been destroyed. At least once, those assurances even conflicted with what Tulsa police said internally. A Tulsa police captain emailed city attorneys in 2016 that this is 25 years old, but I believe the items listed on the receipt may still be in the property room. Oh, so we didn't read this one. This wasn't in the overlay of the video. This is from Karen Tipler to Gerald Bender, Kim Lee, Tara Bryans, also CCing Laurel Ledbetter and Tracy Lewis. It's a request to preserve documents being forwarded, and it's flagged for follow-up, but that it says completed. It reads, I received this today from the chief's office. This is 25 years old, but I believe the items listed on the receipt may still be in the property room. So, oops. Yet police continued to insist to Smolin that the rape kit and other evidence had been destroyed, including in an evidentiary court hearing in November 2020. Yeah, that's not good. In 2022, after years of getting nowhere, Smolin convinced a judge to let him search for the evidence. But when he actually gained access to the Tulsa police property room that summer, he faced a different problem. He had no idea how to find what he was looking for. Closely watched by property room staffers and officers, Smolin spent hours that day looking for the rape kit and other evidence, growing increasingly disappointed as it appeared it was no longer there. Eventually, he found a lead. The back of an original property receipt listing evidence retained in Jamerson's case showed an as yet unseen item identified as, quote, fibers. By 3 p.m., having blown past lunch, Smolin was informed that the people supervising his search needed to take an hour break. Smolin was buoyant, and he said, having found a new lead for the first time in years, but the possibility existed that it would turn out to be another dead end. I was like, this is going to give me the opportunity, at least to go in front of a judge and argue I should be able to go back and look for more stuff. When he returned to the property room, he said the vibe had shifted. Oh, I mean, like, he's gonna figure it out. He says, when I walked back in, it's a completely different feeling in the room. I was like, did you guys find it? The item, a manila envelope, had been found in a dry police storage facility located elsewhere in Tulsa. It wasn't the rape kit, but it was something better. They had located slides containing biological evidence from the rape kit, material that had already been identified as containing semen. Months later, the sample was sent to a forensic testing laboratory in Virginia. The lab responded via email on April 13th, 2023, saying the results excluded Jamerson as the source of the sample. Well, this is unclear. Did they find this in their hour lunch break? Or did they argue to the court that they needed to go back and this is on another day? But then they don't tell him until he's there. Either way, it seems like there was reluctance to tell him that they found the thing that they said that they destroyed. And we looked at part of this. We looked at the line item 3, where Jamerson was excluded as a possible contributor. There is a part 2, a line item 2. It says the partial DNA profile obtained from the epithelial fraction is consistent with the female contributor and will be used as the reference sample for Glenda Dubs. So Smolin told the Frontier he anticipated the test results would end the case. Oh boy. And Jamerson would finally have his sentence vacated, but prosecutors took a different approach. The Tulsa County District Attorney's Office response maintains that the DNA test results do not qualify as a reason to vacate Jamerson's conviction. I've got a quote here from the prosecutor's filing. The lack of Jamerson's DNA from the latest round of testing does nothing for him. It does not overcome a conclusive identification of him made by Glenda Dubs, who I guess is Kaylee Dubs. Right? Maybe they're just using Glenda as a pseudonym, even though they kept the last name the same. Or maybe she goes by Kaylee, but her legal name is Glenda. It does not overcome a conclusive identification of him made by Dubs. In what world was that a conclusive identification? And remember, this article said that the Frontier tried to reach out to the current district attorney, or at least whoever was district attorney in the time of writing this article, 2023. Not only did they not want to speak to the Frontier, but they didn't want to view the interview that we watched with Miss Dubs. Because then they couldn't say this. Just crazy. In an October 31st response to Jamerson's petition to vacate his conviction, prosecutors continued to maintain that Dubs identified Jamerson as her attacker when she chose him from a photo lineup. The Tulsa County District Attorney's response states a detective presented Dubs with a photo lineup and included a form with Dubs' signature, saying she chose Jamerson's phone photo from it. The evidence gathered by law enforcement, however, did not include a recording of Dubs identifying Jamerson from a lineup or the actual photos from that lineup. Dubs testified during Jamerson's trial that she viewed a photo lineup of 5 people and picked Jamerson out of the series of photos. She told the prosecutor she had no doubt Jamerson was her rapist. But police records from the case show how detectives, not Dubs, came up with Jamerson as their prime suspect before a photo lineup. And I don't know, do they describe it again? Do they include that letter? So if you missed it earlier, when we were watching the video of the interview with Miss Dubs, they had an overlay on the screen, and it looked like one detective was detailing how, another detective shows me the composite sketch that Dubs helped with to have the artist draw her assailant. And I recognized that from this composite sketch, I recognized that it was Jamerson because we had another photo of him from a different robbery. So they're not including that document here, but that's what's being referred to right here. So it was police that came up with, it's Jamerson, and then they go to Dubs and say, we have the guy. We have the guy. So because witnesses described the robber and rapist as Black men, and there were suspicions the robbery could have been an inside job, a store manager, not present on the night of the crimes, gave police the names of 3 current and former restaurant employees who were Black, including Jamerson. Though no witnesses had named Jamerson as a suspect, and some named another man, oh boy. So I think that's the first time we're hearing this, right? Witnesses were actually giving the name of a different individual. Police nonetheless pulled Jamerson's photo taken during an earlier encounter and added it to the case files on the Ma Bell's rape and robbery. So Ma Bell's the diner restaurant. 2 months after the robbery, Detective David Witt was brought into the investigation to create a composite drawing of the rape suspect. The composite was created based on an interview with Dubs, police records state. Witt was not certified and had no formal training as a forensic artist. What? The drawing he created is not a forensic drawing. So I can probably shrink this to get it all on screen. So if you missed it, this was the composite from earlier. According to police records, the robbery detective assigned to the case saw which drawing Witt's drawing of the rape suspect and noticed the resemblance of that composite to a standard police mugshot of William Henry Jamerson. The robbery detective, Jay Hunter, shared the composite and photograph of Jamerson with Detective Deborah Daniels, who agreed there was a remarkable resemblance between the two, which I disagree with. Jamerson's petition claims officers created the composite drawing, then informed Dubs that it had allowed them to identify Jamerson as the attacker. TPD never disclosed to the district attorney's office that they, not Dubs, had identified Jamerson as the assailant. During Jamerson's trial, the state did not call either Hunter or Daniels, who investigated the case and were integral to identifying Jamerson, as witnesses to testify about that process. The state did enter a stipulation outlining that Daniels would, if called, testify about collecting bodily fluids from Jamerson after his arrest. Prosecutors now say they aren't sure why the state did not call the detective responsible for the alleged photo lineup or include anything about the photo lineup in its stipulation about Daniels' testimony. Maybe because it didn't happen. Maybe because it didn't happen. Well, just saying. In interviews with The Frontier, Dub said while she recalled helping Witt draw a composite sketch of her attacker's face, she did not recall participating in a photo lineup. I don't remember any lineup. I don't think so, and I remember everything. Dub said she had never met Jamerson and that she first heard his name from police. They said they had found the guy that they believe is the guy that did it and that his name was Jamerson. She said she described what her attacker looked like to police, pointing to the composite drawn 2 months after the attack. So the drawing was 2 months after the attack. Another problem, even if to the best of any witness's ability, they're being asked to draw something. Do you think you have a better visual of somebody? And I know there's the whole, like, I'll never forget their face. But still. So this composite drawing happens 2 months later, which again goes to backing up. They were just going to find and point the finger at whoever they wanted to, because they certainly weren't in a rush to investigate and find the people. Apparently this involved 3 suspects, not just 2, and they only looked for 1. I gave them the face I saw, and they're the ones who later on was like, oh, this is who this is. Dub said police told her his identity was a perfect match with the composite sketch. But they could be lying to me, I don't know. And then this new section says no Negroid hairs so far. Please tell me this isn't written in something. While police told Dubs they had identified her attacker, some evidence pointed to another possible suspect. But records show that exculpatory information wasn't turned over to Jamerson or his previous attorneys before trial. Tests from the Tulsa police lab on Dub's clothing from that night found numerous pubic hairs from a Caucasian person. Jamerson said those tests were among hundreds of pages of documents that the prosecutor didn't share with his attorney. Despite finding no hairs from a black assailant, records show prosecutors and police were clearly looking for them during their bid to tie Jamerson to the rape. So this is crazy on its own, but it's additionally crazy because the image that they use that we saw of Jamerson, like, we have like pictures of him getting released, but there's some picture that they included from Jamerson back in the day where he's bald. I mean, I guess he had facial hair, but still, his head was bald, and the composite sketch has someone with like a head of hair. And in any case, again, this goes back to they're just looking to fit what they expect. They are inventing their own 20% rule. Oh my gosh. So they find no hairs from a black assailant at all, period. But prosecutors and police were clearly looking for them during their bid to tie Jamerson. A Tulsa Police Crime Lab's examiner notes about tests on Dub's clothing from that night state that Sousa, so this is the prosecutor at the time, the trial prosecutor, called the examiner on September 23rd, 1991, about a month after Jamerson was arrested. She said that she needs to know if there are any Negroid hairs. This is for real? Who is this lady? She said that she needs to know if there are any Negroid hairs in order to obtain known samples from the suspect. With an exclamation, guys. So I'm reading this out loud. Oh. I zoomed. The examiner, in the examiner's notes, the examiner added an exclamation point as if the examiner was in disbelief, as they should be. As they should be. So this is a contemporaneous note from September 23, 1991, of the examiner reacting to a call-in from the trial prosecutor. What in the 1856? Hey, I won't even say that because people are disgusting even in 2025. But still, you would like someone writing this out in 1991 is, you know, again, that's not long ago. That's not long ago. Oh my God, what? Hold on, let me take back my credit that I just gave the examiner. The next day, the examiner's notes state, quote, "No Negroid hairs so far," another exclamation. So, so either they didn't even look at the clothing before this point, or they're looking again specifically. Either way, whether they looked at it or not, which they should have looked at if they cared about getting to the bottom of this. And maybe they didn't look at all. And this is the first time they're deciding it's worthwhile to look at. Or they looked and didn't find what they're looking for. But either way, we're coming to a crossroads here where now we're specifically looking for something that will match the person we want to pin the crime on. So, and what does so far mean? So we're going to keep looking specifically to find not just evidence, not just a sign, not just a clue, not just a lead, but specifically we're going to keep looking because we haven't found any, quote, Negroid hairs so far. So I take back any grace that I gave the examiner after reading this part, because I thought the examiner was in disbelief that Sousa was calling and requesting this, but she's with it. Or he's with it. I don't know. In a sworn statement filed in the case, Sousa stated while she doesn't have detailed memories, "It was my practice to provide defense counsel with all police reports in my possession as an assistant district attorney assigned to a case." The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in 1963 that the government's failure to disclose evidence favorable to a criminal defendant and that could determine guilt or punishment is a violation of the 14th Amendment's rights to due process. So this is either Brady or maybe Giglio. Withholding evidence can be used to overturn. I kept fighting. During the nearly 24 years he spent in Oklahoma prisons, Jamerson waged a lonely quest to prove his innocence. He spent most of his time in law libraries, writing appeals and letters to anyone who might help. While those appeals were turned down, he struggled to rise above the everyday horrors of prison life. Jamerson saw the aftermath of a teen cellmate's suicide by hanging and the fatal stabbing of a prison cafeteria worker. He was unable to grieve with his family after his father and brother died. Yet through those years, he rejected multiple chances to win early release through parole. Yeah, and guys, when you go for parole, you have to admit you did something. A process that would have required him to admit guilt in the case. "I ain't going to accept a crime that I didn't do," he said. When freedom finally came in 2015, Jamerson said he remained determined to prove his innocence, even after serving out his time. He had to register as a sex offender, making it nearly impossible to find a steady job to support himself. He said he can find temporary employment, but it almost always ends as soon as his employers learn about his criminal past. His memorabilia from days as a standout basketball player had been removed from a display at a central high school. Dang. If his conviction is vacated and he's found legally innocent of the crime, he could be eligible for compensation from Oklahoma's wrongful conviction fund, but the payout is capped at $175,000 and could take years to be compensated. So that's where I was getting at, like, to see someone get 26 million, even though I don't think that's enough. I mean, I just don't think there's a price tag. It's a shockingly high amount compared to just like the stories that we see like this time and time again. I don't want to call Jamerson lucky, but I'm just saying that these caps with these programs, even where they do exist, are like a drop in the water, it feels like. And of course, Era knows 1963 is Brady. So there we go. Most of all, Jamerson said he wants to prove his innocence and clear his name to make life easier for his mother, who never wavered in her support for him during her son's 2 decades in prison. She always tells me I'll be glad to have this over with, he said. And like again, that's anybody that is fighting the fight. Of course, it's Jamerson that loses the freedom. And I think when we're looking at attorneys, as we read these stories, I think of Aaron, I think of Happily Angry Lawyer, and like we're seeing them and we get to experience their insights along the way as they fight down these same journeys alongside the people that they're doing the research and doing the advocacy work for. Because I don't think Jamerson's results would be here if it wasn't for his attorney. I mean, the critical turnaround point seems to be this lunch break light bulb moment. What did they say? The vibe in the room changed? Yeah, like this vibe shift where we suddenly find, oh, we finally found this test that you've been looking for 2 decades that completely excludes you as a contributor for the semen gathered from the rape test kit. We wouldn't have gotten here if it wasn't for Attorney Smolin. And mom fighting for it, and all of the supporters. Oh, and what a throwback. So this says you can get pork chop and eggs for $7.99 whenever this picture was taken. 1991. Oh, maybe this is a newer picture. But still, if that is present day, not bad. You can get a pork chop and eggs for $7.99, you guys. Oh my goodness. Where were we? Okay, so we were here. So Jamerson said he has worked for years to overcome his anger at how the case played out. While watching Dub's video interview with the Frontier, in which she expresses doubts about his conviction, Jamerson shook his head and exhaled. I didn't lose no hope, I just stayed focused, he said. And presumably, this is before the settlement, right? So they had this interview with Miss Dubs before the news that spawned this stream today, right? We now have this article saying he's getting 26 million from the city of Tulsa. They are going to pay him out. But this is before that happened. Where his sentence was over, but he was still a convicted felon. He had to be on a sex offender list. He was having trouble finding employment. His name was not cleared. So this was all within the last 2 years. Dubs stated, okay, they give her full name, guys. So it's Glenda Kayleen Dubs. So that's why we had the 2 names. Dubs said it's important to remember that even if Jamerson's conviction is vacated, she's also a victim in the case. She said she was a traumatized pregnant teen who did what police and prosecutors told her to do. Quote, I feel like they put a story together. I'm not here to convict people that aren't guilty. I was 16, I was pregnant, I was scared. She said if she had been older and more confident to stand up for herself, the outcome might have been different. And it's a very emotional thing to sit there with a jury and be pregnant and being so young. And your parents are sitting there and the lawyers are asking you, oh God, if you could see his penis again, could you identify it? Well, it's just a crazy question to ask in general. The possibility that she might have been wrong about who attacked her that night is deeply unsettling to her. I'm damaged and still a victim. Now I get to live with the fact that my rapist wasn't caught. So there you go. That is the rewind on how we got to the news today. And again, let's see. Drop the link here. Give some traffic over to the Frontier, you guys. I mean, it really is not often that it's like, first of all, the sample size is small because it's not every day that a wrongful conviction gets overturned. But in addition to, again, I think this was a really intimate look at the journey from 1991 through to today, where the whole chat just responds to that question. Could you identify again? I would be annoyed if someone asked me that. Like, even in like a less traumatic circumstance, honestly, like, I don't know, unless I've told you like I remember this specific detail from that part of the body, what's the relevance of that question? You should already know if I have any important information to relay to you about something like that. You shouldn't be asking me when I'm on the stand in front of a jury. Like, that's not well thought out. It just seems kind of inflammatory. Um, and at the victim's expense to ask something so triggering if there's no probative value. But that being said, I think it's really important. Let's give some foot traffic to the frontier. I'm looking forward to, supporting them moving forward. I don't know. Can we see what other stories they talk about? Like what I'm gonna do after the stream is like go and follow all their channels, see if they're present, and share what I can. Oh, they're talking about the Tremaine Wood. That's also Oklahoma, you guys. So I believe this the Tremaine Wood story was someone else confessed to doing the killing, and they were acquitted at trial. But Tremaine Wood was still on death row. So his sentence, I think he had a sentence commuted. So, but they've got this looks like a ton of great stories that after the stream, I'm going to do a deep dive, read, share a bunch of stuff, continue to support them. It looks like they have a podcast. But coverage like this, and I think we read from Dylan. So this is Dylan. Gotta support those that are doing the footwork, because again, it's one thing to read a headline that, a court of appeals issues an opinion, and sometimes the opinion has some spice in it, but it's pretty dry otherwise. Or court of appeals opinions, they don't always want to touch on key issues. They just want to reverse on a milk toast kind of lukewarm issue and say we're not going to address the other enumerations of error. But when you get the faces, when you get the names, when you get the story, when you get the details of what prosecutor Sousa, we have names, we have points in time, we have correspondence. That is great, great journalism. So let's shout it out. Sunshine says late but present. You probably came in at an interesting moment. I promise whatever I was reading came from the words on the screen. Good to see you, Sunshine. Hope you're doing well. Oh boy. But yeah, I mean, does anybody feel like sometimes when I talk about a conviction being reversed, and specifically in the context of someone had to fight through the last legs of an appeal, like new evidence was found, it was tested, and then finally, after decades of fighting, convictions overturned, or someone gets their certificate of innocence. Every once in a while, someone crawls out and they start talking about Innocence Project fraud. The implication being that the Innocence Project is just a racket that takes funds from people, and they find technicalities with the DNA evidence to get people off. That's not the way I view the Innocence Project or similar initiatives. That's certainly not something that the opinion wouldn't even apply to cases that are overturned for reasons that don't involve DNA testing. But here, I think we have some pretty clear-cut examples. You've got a 16-year-old witness that's like, I don't know, they told me they had the guy. I was 16. I did what they said, and it horrifies me. I don't think that they have the right guy. I'm not here to convict someone that isn't guilty. And then they have blood serum testing, which is just, hey, he's one of 20% of people, 20% of the general population that doesn't secrete like blood in their semen. That really doesn't narrow much down. And then we have all this correspondence that they have the kit that could exonerate somebody, but they say that they don't have it. But then they suddenly find it when a defense attorney who's just got like the fiery passion to see this through to the end. If it wasn't for that attorney, we probably wouldn't be here today talking about this story. All of a sudden, the vibe changes. Oh, we found this thing that we couldn't find for 20 years because you found a lead. Oops. Oops. Just give us a minute to work it out real quick and cover our hands. And then again, I think it's important that the victim came forward and spoke. Again, I can say that eyewitness identification, I'm not going to say that implicit bias, implicit racism doesn't contribute to false identification. People might really think they're identifying the correct person. It's not just a completely made up claim, but implicit bias is what's steering them to identify someone that isn't accurately the right person. I think that's an issue too. But at the same time, I think when we have someone that's a victim of a crime, you know, all I can say is I think it's great that she's saying she doesn't think that it's right and that she's willing to share her story. Because without her doing this interview, there would be somebody on Twitter that said, but he was still identified in a photo lineup by the victim. And without having the video of Miss Dubs herself saying, I never had a photo lineup. You can't even challenge people that hold those definitive beliefs. So it's a lot. I always think these are heavy topics. Um, Glad to talk about them with you guys. Yes, Sunshine says definitely did not sound like cat verbiage. I swear I was reading the article. I swear I was just reading the article. YouTube's gonna make this one. They're gonna be like, "What the heck were you talking about?" We're age restricting that one, and perhaps as they should, but still. Okay, blood type and not blood. So, yes, I don't really understand the science of it, but either way, it stands out to me that the best you can do is 20%. And then in closing arguments, you're going to argue that the case is airtight because of this and the witness identification, the photo lineup identification that never happened. I really don't think that happened. So, hey, that one girl, Melly, good to see you. I saw you over this morning hanging out at Club Classy, who was talking about the Brian Walsh, the plea, that decision, which is still crazy. I think it's a strategic decision, but still crazy nevertheless, right? That is, you've got a defendant admitting to two things that carry some serious time on their own, and still going to trial for the murder charge. So very interesting to see that news this morning. Good to see you here, Melly. We are going to be wrapping this up. I want to check if AV to the seventh power is still live and we can set up a redirect over there. She was talking about I saw her go live as I opened up YouTube to start this stream. And it was the Karen Reed lawsuit, which was, I think it was like 48 pages. So it's possible she might still be live. Let's see. And pulling up my feed right now, I also see, okay, so she ended 46 minutes ago. So I'll drop a link in the chat to that. So I can't redirect to something that's done. So there's that. And then as far as who is live right now. Take It to Trial is covering Georgia v. Matthew Lance. So I haven't followed that trial at all, but that is a live trial watch if you guys want to go over there. Lawyer You Know is doing the Karen Reed civil case. And Recovery Addicts also doing Matthew Lance. Credence and Mikey is covering sovereign citizen cases. And I see Dolly just started Where's My Car auto theft trial. So that shout out, that's what I see going live right now. If you guys have any preference, we'll send over to one of those things. Do you guys want to do a trial watch? Do you guys want to do the Karen Reed motion? We'll take a trip over to whoever. But that's who I see is just live in general. So shout out to everyone covering whatever they're covering. Sheriff Chuck says airtight for a screen enclosure. Oh no. Oh no. One day I've got to tell you guys how I first learned what no-see-ums were after moving down to Florida. They can get through some layers of clothing and all that. Also, Trakisha, sorry I'm seeing this now, said, thank you for bringing these cases to light. Well, thanks for hanging out and taking interest in them, you guys. That way, I'd probably still talk about them even if I was just talking to myself. But it's nice that that's not what I have to do because you guys are here to hang out. So thanks for being here. Do you guys want to do the Matthew Lance case? We can do that. Because that's again, that is take it to trial and recovery addict. I'll choose take it to trial as the redirect because I think take it to trial is harder to search and find. But recovery addict is also live covering that trial as well. And yeah, so it's there's like a 9 out of 10 chance that a Georgia case is going to be crazy, right? Doesn't even matter if it's Fulton. So we'll see. It'll be my first time tuning into that trial, so it'll be new to me. I think at 6 p.m. I saw Justice Serve TV is also going to be talking a little bit about Brian Walsh, and I think they're going to be talking about the Aidan Kearney proceedings. So a lot of Massachusetts updates. I'm sure they're going to include some conversation about the Karen Reed lawsuit now that that's been filed. Other than that, you guys, tomorrow Pam Entertainment TV is going to be talking about the new Drake lawsuit. Pam Esquire, speaking of Pam, I think Pam Esquired, different Pam, might be at the Meg the Stallion and Milagro, the defamation trial in Florida. So if that's the case, I saw her make a post about it and it seems like she's in the courtroom. So if you guys are looking for like someone that's going to stream and talk about that, I imagine she would go live if she is in fact down there. So I always love Pam, her insight. I love both Pam's insights on things, but that's a trial I haven't talked about here on the stream. But it's interesting. It's creators, are they a journalist? Are they not a journalist? Are they just media? Is the commentary that you give online, when does it cross the line? Does it not cross the line? And it's going to be in the jury's hands to decide. So a whole mess there, and I don't want to get into too much on like anything that crosses into Stan War territory. I like to stay away from that. But yeah, still an interesting case, I think. Florida case, testing, First Amendment protections, not really in play because you have an individual versus an individual. So I see a lot of comments on X saying, but what about the First Amendment? And sure, you don't want to have the government having any type of chilling effect on the speech of citizens. But still, you can be sued and a jury could find you liable. They might say, hey, we think the opposite. We want you to shove it. We think this case is garbage. Who knows? So I'll be looking for Pam's coverage. That's where I'll be looking. Oh God, and Trakeisha says the defense opening in the Matthew Lance case is crazy. So let's get over there, you guys. Thank you so much. If you guys see any other cases of interest or just want to point out someone that's covering something, either next time we get together, let us know, or hit me over on X. Let us know and we can shout them out as well. See you guys somewhere. Thanks for hanging out. Bye, guys.